Welcome to the Growth Shift. I'm David Zilstra. Here's what I've learned after years in business. Every leader who's built something meaningful has a story, but the moment they had to shift, when failure forced innovation, when change became opportunity, when they chose growth over comfort. On this show, we dive into those pivotal moments, the setbacks that became breakthroughs, the strategic shifts that accelerated growth, and the frameworks that turn obstacles into opportunities. Because here's the truth. In a world where change is the only constant, the leaders who thrive aren't the ones who avoid failure. They're the ones who've learned to shift strategically through it. So whether you're facing your own pivot point or just want to learn from someone who's been there, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Today, joining us on the show is Amy Kirstein, Director of Operations at Truluma, a Simplicity Group company specializing in disability insurance. Over 11 years of experience in the industry, Amy has been at the forefront of technological transformation in insurance, working directly with carriers on pilot programs and witnessing firsthand the evolution from paper applications to AI-powered underwriting. Amy, it's great to have you on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
Now, what you're doing at Truluma is different than many other companies in a similar position. Can you walk us through Truluma's unique positioning in the disability insurance market and how you've carved out this sort of specialized niche?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Truluma is a general agency, which means that we sit in the seat of acting as consultants and distributors of financial products, specifically income protection, also known as disability insurance. The founders of Truluma started out as agents, pounding the pavement and selling policies, and they found the need to have a general agency that can advocate for agents and clients and work directly with carriers to be able to turn applications into policies.
Fantastic. And, as the director of operations, a lot falls to you in terms of, direction and just making sure things happen, of course. Something that you mentioned is working exclusively through financial advisors rather than direct to consumer. Not many people are doing this. How's it really helped you and your team at Truluma differentiate what it is that you do from other competitors?
Yeah, so our clients are the financial advisors, and a lot of the advisors that we work with specialize a lot in financial planning, selling life insurance or annuities, more on the asset protection side. So disability insurance is very important for a financial plan, but these advisors aren't necessarily always comfortable right off the bat speaking about disability insurance. It's unique and can be a little more tricky to navigate. So our sales folks, sit in a seat where we can advise them and coach them on how to even just start the conversation about protecting income.
And disability insurance is what it's generally referred to, but you guys refer to it as income protection, right? As many I think do who truly understand what it is. But it sounds like maybe there's even a little bit of a gap when it comes to the financial advisors you're working with. But maybe they can't actually articulate what it is that income protection insurance actually is and how it benefits. So how is it that you help your clients better understand it so that they can serve their clients better?
Yeah, so I mean, again, life insurance agents focus on asset protection when someone dies, but what would happen if someone becomes disabled and can no longer earn their income? So there's a lot of bills to pay, there's mortgage, utilities, groceries, lifestyle to protect. And if someone loses their entire income or part of their income, then they start digging into those assets. They have to start digging into their 401k, their savings. And what if they don't have a lot of assets to dig into? Then they're in a pretty bad situation. And so that's why we use the word income protection, because it really does protect those that are, in their careers, that are in their 30s, 40s, 50s, that have a lot of career left before they retire, and a lot of potential income, a lot of potential earnings to protect in the event of a disability. Even if it's just a short term or a partial disability, there's still a lot of risk to mitigate there.
Yeah, absolutely. And like truly impactful for people to be able to know that they can rely on something, if there is an interruption in their work or in their business or their ability just to feed themselves or their family. And, it seems like such a no-brainer. Income protection insurance, right? Disability insurance. But at times it seems like almost like that disability insurance or income protection is almost a last thought for many financial advisors or planners, or, as insurance, it's kind of, again, left to last and really not
Yeah.
spoken about initially when it comes to bundling in with things like investments and K and retirement planning. Why do you think that is?
I think that's a difficult question to answer, and that's why we're so valuable, right? Is because we coach these advisors to make disability insurance part of their initial conversation. It's hard to have a financial plan when you have no income. So, getting that as the baseline is very important, and trying to just make advisors comfortable having the conversation. We really try to do.
Yeah, and I mean, you must do a lot of empowering and educating your clients because as advisors, I imagine one of the things that they're up against is maybe not wanting to talk about something that they're not truly confident in or can articulate because it might, detract from their credibility if that was the case. How is it that you approach this? Do you offer like workshops, webinars, information? How is it that you collaborate and work with your clients to make sure that they have everything they need to be able to serve their clients properly?
Yeah, so just words that work was a term that a carrier back in the day used, and I like that. I use the word income protection on purpose because disability insurance can have a negative connotation, whereas income protection is more that positive spin. So even as something as simple as that, of using positive words, rather than the insurance language, is definitely helpful.
Mm, fantastic. So, Amy, as someone who's been in the industry for over a decade now, what sort of shifts have you witnessed, particularly around technology adoption?
A lot, obviously, in the last 11 years. So I started out as a case manager, and we would get applications in and we would scrub them, and a lot of them were handwritten. Sometimes they were difficult to read. We would have to mail in checks. It was very, very old fashioned. The industry has shifted tremendously over the last 10 years. I think the pandemic definitely fast tracked some of the carriers that were still a little bit behind the curve, with folks that, when advisors can't actually meet a client face to face for that couple years, right? They had to provide electronic solutions. So electronic applications, adoption of allowing DocuSign or other e-signature platforms to be able to take applications virtually. So that not only just allowed people to still continue in the business and continue to write applications, but on my side, from where I sat as the case manager and now as the director of operations overseeing that, it makes our lives a lot easier too. It makes underwriters' lives easier too, not having to read paper applications, and just really speeds up the process.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, paper applications, there's no way you'd be able to do, let alone any company really do what they do effectively relying on that. The margin for error, human error, is so high, of course, even if you're meticulous. And if you spend too much time with it, then of course you're falling behind in other aspects of business. So, Amy, you've seen a lot change in the industry, right? Starting as a case manager, working with paper applications, now as a director of operations with a little bit more technology infused to really be able to serve your clients better. I mean, how much have things changed for you? What does your typical day look like now as a director of operations? And maybe what are some of the areas you're starting to see big improvements even today with technology?
Yeah, so big improvements. Just I spend a lot of time walking people through an e-application. So once they get it the first time, they're going to get it a second time. That's a huge deal in any industry. Is getting someone to come back, getting that consumer to come back. The easier that we can make the process, the more likely they are to sell more policies. So I spend a lot of time with advisors and with their assistants, just making sure they get the process the first time around, and so that the underwriting process goes more smoothly for them and for their clients.
Now, that's a lot to think about, right? Because there's a lot up front there that you need to do to make sure your clients are starting off on the right foot. And as I understand it, I mean, DI cases can take a few months to process, right? Just with the intricacy behind them. Are you guys implementing any sort of systems right now or exploring any systems for streamlining this?
So the carriers definitely are. One big part of the process is gathering info. Well, that's the whole process, is gathering information, right? So carriers have started using more databases to gather information up. So the MIB, which is the Medical Information Bureau, that's where all carriers report information for other carriers to see about an individual, prescription reports, medical claims data, all of these pieces. I had an underwriter tell me one time that each piece is like a piece of Swiss cheese, but the more that you pile them on top of each other, the more those holes are going to fill in and the bigger, more complete picture that they're going to see. So using more of these databases helps them paint the picture of what's really going on with that individual client and speeds up the process rather than having to constantly be asking questions and trying to gather data from that individual.
Interesting. Now, there's a lot of data being collected there. There's a lot of holes. I love the analogy of stacking it up like cheese. Anything that refers to cheese makes me happy generally. When we're looking at the amount of data that needs to be gathered and the time frames for processing and such, I mean, as a general agent, you're in the middle between a carrier and between a client. Are you working still in the middle during these processing times to keep clients engaged through the lengthy time frames? How do you manage that?
That's a great question. That's one of the slowest part of the process for DI and for life insurance is gathering medical records. So attending physician statements, just my personal opinion is that is the most antiquated part of our industry. It takes a very, very long time and there's very little that we can do to expedite those due to all the HIPAA regulations. So if that medical records retrieval process could improve, that would definitely improve all of our lives. There are still forms that need to be hand signed, wet signatures for special facility authorizations, for example, that really bogs down the process. And to your point, people start to lose interest and we need to keep them engaged while we're just, waiting around for their medical records to show up.
There's a fine line between, what antiquated systems maybe should be in place or antiquated approaches, let's say traditional approaches, and automation and technology, right? Because with too much automation and technology, maybe you can lose a client's trust, right? And with systems that are truly antiquated and out of date, right? Perhaps things won't work as effectively. Now, with the position you're in as director of operations at Truluma, you're experiencing perhaps a mix of situations coming from carriers, as I understand it, right? You're noticing some are using these automations and some are using more AI, while others are still in that traditional lane. Can you share a little bit about what it is that you're observing between the different carriers who are using AI, those who are using it more, and perhaps those who haven't really started using it much at all?
Yeah, that's a great question. Certain carriers do rely very heavily still on those APS records, which again slows down the process, whereas some others are more trusting in the data that they're receiving from the electronic side of things. So they're trusting those layers of Swiss cheese to be able to make an educated decision based on the information that they have, rather than wasting the time or spending the time, if you will, to gather the actual true medical records and a human underwriter taking the time to read through, potentially hundreds of pages of these medical records. So that's where I think AI can definitely come in and improve the process by providing summaries, by reading, using AI to read through those hundreds of pages and summarizing and painting the actual picture for the human underwriter to still make their decision, but to be able to utilize that information in a much more streamlined fashion.
So it sounds like you're of the opinion right now, and the perspective from what you're seeing, that there's always going to be, or largely there will still be human oversight when it comes to underwriting, because with full automation and full trust of AI, there's certain things that are being missed, right? Or maybe they're just not being analyzed properly.
For now, anyway, yeah, there are still situations where, AI isn't maybe quite there yet, that it might not always make the right decision. Whereas as a human underwriter can ask some more follow-up questions, some clarification questions specific to maybe a particular medication being taken. I think an example would be a weight loss medication that was originally designed to be a diabetes medication. Well, that person might not be taking it for diabetes. They might not have diabetes. They might just be taking it for weight loss. But AI might go, okay, trigger that as a diabetes medication and trigger a adverse decision. So I think there is some risk of full AI underwriting at this point, but I think AI can definitely add a lot of value and assist the human underwriter to ultimately make that decision.
I'm sure this is very comforting for certain people to hear who, have these crazy concerns that AI is just going to replace everyone's jobs, especially on the data side of things. I mean, you look at underwriting, sure, it's data heavy, right? You need to have the data and the analysis to determine whether or not there's an appetite for the risk and it's a suitable risk. But it seems like maybe right now also AI is just not intelligent enough to understand that there are different human situations, right? And to be able to ask those follow up questions and maybe understand what is between the lines, not maybe just the lines of data
Yeah.
itself.
There is a carrier that is using for their short-term product using an instant decision. So those cases never actually are touched by a human underwriter. It's an instant decision based on all of that data that's pulled. And some of the justification that they provided to me was that because it's a very inexpensive product, that it's not financially viable for them to actually pay a human to touch those cases. So I found that kind of interesting. And to your point about are underwriters scared about AI taking over their jobs? Well, maybe a little bit, but that's just the direction the industry is headed in.
Well, hey, but at the same time, if something isn't profitable enough for a carrier to be able to offer it with full human oversight, surely by automating something like that, that maybe they wouldn't have been able to keep somebody for anyways, creating more revenue for the carrier. Maybe they'd be able to hold their employees longer or be able to
Yeah.
invest in back into them or grow the company as well. So there are situations where I think AI is going to replace jobs, but it's going to create additional new opportunities as a result, maybe in multiples as well. So this is on the carrier side of things. It sounds like what's happening will impact potential clients or policy holders, right? But I'm kind of curious here as well. When it comes to the relationship between general agencies such as yours and the carrier, and how that relationship is perhaps enabled. Your relationship is enabled to serve your clients better. Do you see AI really putting you in an advantageous position when it comes to what the carriers are doing with it and how you will then be able to pass those benefits on to your clients? I mean, is it saving you time so now you can spend more time with your clients? Is it giving you access to better, faster decisions so that you can help your clients faster? Where is it really putting the agency, your agency?
It's definitely, speeding things up, which is great. The faster a case goes, the next one you can move on to, and hopefully that volume is going to increase. But full circle back to what we, originally were talking about of our role is allowing us to be the coaches. So the more that we understand about how that underwriting decision is going to go, the better equipped we are to coach those advisors to be able to talk to their clients and set expectations. If someone knows up front what's probably going to happen, the more likely they are to want to accept that policy. So if we can set expectations up front, that's going to benefit everybody, including especially the consumer.
Amy, a lot of things are changing right now, right? Not only with the carriers, with your clients' clients, right? Because you're not direct to consumer. Lots changing across the insurance industry in general. But when it comes to the disability insurance sector specifically, where do you see it maybe heading in the next 12 to 18 months regarding technology adoption, right? Do you see more people jumping into it and using it in greater ways, or is it a little bit of a slower approach?
It's a little bit of a slower approach. Each carrier that we work with has their own e-application platform, for example. One thing on the life insurance side, because it's a bit of a bigger industry is having one platform, one e-application for multiple carriers that would feed into their systems. So right now, that doesn't exist for DI. I see that being something down the road. It's going to cost a lot of money, and I don't know who's going to pay for it, but for there to be one platform. So an advisor only needs one login instead of one for every single carrier that they're going to do business with. That's why I spend a lot of time walking people through the e-application, because it's their first time on that platform for that carrier. So being able to consolidate them all into one, similar look and feel would be very advantageous all around.
A good opportunity there for a listener here to try and approach. I mean, it sounds like it'd be something very valuable on your side of things. So that's on the industry side. I mean, but you yourself, you've seen a lot change in the industry, right? Again, paper applications to now AI in application. Like, this is crazy. There's so much that's happening. When it comes to, the changes you've seen, the progress within the industry, maybe companies who have fallen behind and become obsolete as well, perhaps sticking to paper applications and not keeping up or implementing change, right? What are perhaps some of your opinions or insights that you might share with other business leaders or professionals who have more concerns about AI than they do positive feelings?
I think just understanding it, just asking questions. As you mentioned, I do spend a lot of time working directly with carriers as they're developing new technologies, and I'm not shy about sharing my opinions, which is why they invite me so they really want to know, what goes on our side of things and what experiences we are looking for, allowing us to ask questions. So again, just asking the questions and understanding it makes it less scary.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the more information you have, the more empowered you can be, right? It's hard to make decisions, especially for insurance and financial professionals. No one's making decisions with a lack of information. And if you are, you haven't been in the industry long and you won't be around for much longer, right? But asking the right questions, getting the right information, and being able to make informed decisions. I think that holds true in any aspect of business and life if you want to, either conquer concerns or be able to make sure you're heading in the right direction. Amy, that was great. I really appreciate your insights and sharing your story and your perspective with the audience today. For any of our listeners who might like to connect with Truluma, perhaps financial advisors or any other
Yeah.
industry professionals who might just like to continue the conversation, what would be the best way to reach out?
I mean, I don't know if I should just share my email address here over the podcast.
If you'd like to, go right ahead.
So amy.kirstein@simplicitygroup.com.
Fantastic. And we'll put that into the caption of the show as
Yeah,
well.
fantastic.
To our listeners, thank you for tuning in to the podcast. As always, I hope this episode has brought you valuable insight, knowledge, and inspiration. If it did, please would you show your support by liking this video and subscribing to the channel. Until next time, we're signing off. And that's a wrap on another episode of The Growth Shift. If this conversation sparked something for you, whether it's a new perspective on failure, a strategy you want to try, or just the reminder that every setback can become a setup for something bigger, hit that subscribe button and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Remember, the leaders who thrive aren't the ones who avoid change. They're the ones who shift strategically through it. If you're ready to build the systems that help you grow without the chaos, head over to valentix.io. We help businesses like yours scale smarter, not harder. I'm David Zylstra, and I'll see you in the next shift.